All right, hello everybody. This is a live update on the upcoming tornado outbreak. And yes, I am going to use the word outbreak because it is very likely going to be a very decent tornado event across the entirety of the Great Lakes region. We're going to be doing a thorough overview of the latest models. Some new models have just come out. We're going to be looking at 3 specific models: HRRR, the RRFS, the newest model that is a prototype from the National Weather Service, which did a very good job of forecasting Friday's outbreak out west. So we're going to look at that one. That's the newest model that has just been produced. And then we're going to look at some of the HRW severe weather models as well to get an idea. I'm taking questions on all platforms, taking it on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Okay, so if you're on any of those platforms, you can feel free to leave a comment and I will send you an update. And I'm actually going to go out and do a little bit of storm spotting today, as there are some thunderstorms moving through the area right now. Okay, so we do have some thunderstorms moving through. They're not going to be severe across southwest Ohio. That's where I am right now, but there will still be some thunderstorm activity that will be moving through the region today. And then tomorrow we're going to see multiple rounds of thunderstorms across Indiana and Ohio, and we might see even multiple rounds up in Michigan, but I think there's going to be one big round in Michigan that's going to produce those tornadoes. We're going to look at the models. They might have changed as of my last assessment, but here's the current outlook from the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center, I should say. Enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms across Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Probably going to go up to a moderate for some of you in upcoming outlooks, but it looks like it's going to be an enhanced risk at the current point. And here's the big one: 10% hatched tornado risk across much of lower Michigan, north Indiana, northwest Ohio. That hatched area indicates significant possibility of, or a 10% or greater possibility of EF2 to EF5 tornadoes within 25 miles of any point in that little area. Okay, so you can see that there's some increasing concern. This is extremely rare for Michigan, not as common in Indiana and Ohio for sure, but definitely Michigan does not usually get an event like this. Wind probabilities do become much more increased as you get into Ohio. There's going to be a greater chance for it to just kind of shift into a wind threat. I think there's going to be less instability across southern Indiana, southern Ohio for this event. I think the focus is going to be that northern region. And then the hail threat is also maximized across Michigan and northern Indiana, and that looks like it could be significant hail as well. 2-inch diameter hail or larger within 25 miles of a point. So there's going to be significant hail and the possibility of significant tornadoes with this setup as well across northern to southern lower Michigan, northern Indiana, northwestern Ohio. Okay, we're going to look at all the models. My target area for storm chasing tomorrow is going to be Van Wert and Salina. Okay, any region between Van Wert, Ohio, and Salina. If the outlook changes, I might modify that a little bit. But Van Wert and Salina are going to see a combination of strong tornado threat and damaging wind threat. So I think I'm going to target that region. It looks like that's going to be the main brunt of the storm activity. There is going to be the potential for tornadoes across Ohio, all of Ohio, as you can see on this graph right here. Southern Indiana as well. But I do think the maximized all severe hazards area is going to be Ohio, that area in western Ohio, with possibilities of significant tornadoes, damaging winds, and hailstones. So that's currently what I'm looking at for this event. All right, so let's look at the latest weather models now. Let's first look at the RRFS, which I believe just started to come out. Oh, it's just coming out at the moment. This is actually a threat setup for eastern Iowa and western Iowa. This is what's currently being shown for the upcoming severe weather event that they will be dealing with over the next several hours. It's already ongoing out there. You do have some pop-up severe thunderstorms that are currently moving through that region. Looks like the main event's not going to begin until the afternoon for that area. We're going to wait for that model to update a little bit. That way we can get a better look at it later on. But let's start with the HRRR, the newest model run as of 12Z for the HRRR model. We're going to start with a loop here and see exactly what could possibly occur. HRRR is a very good model for this type of severe weather forecasting, so we're going to take a look at that here. So, HRRR model, we are going to show you exactly what could be going on today. Tuesday, you have those severe thunderstorms that are already moving through northern Illinois. Severe weather sound, you got a nice photograph there. Directional and speed shear, very strong directional shear in that environment. A little bit of a cap, not really much of a cap, but it does get close to showing that the cloud bases will be relatively elevated with those storms along the warm front. Moving off to the northeast, those will begin to move off, and then this is at 7 p.m. It's going to be a nocturnal tornado event across Iowa, Illinois. But again, what happens here is also going to contribute to what happens in our area over the next over the course of several hours on Wednesday. So here we get to about 12 a.m. or not 12 a.m. 7 a.m. across the area. You see that there is a line of lots of multiple different areas of convection across the region. Also one in Indiana as of 7 a.m. You get a sounding of that. You get a marginal tornado setup. You have some directional shear, some speed shear. Not really a extremely conducive environment for tornado development, but you do have SRH values of around 200, Cape values 260. So severe weather threat is probably going to begin as early as 7 a.m. across this region. And in Michigan, it might even occur even earlier than that as you have storms move into that region. But southern Indiana, you'll have some storms moving through there at about 7 a.m. potentially, according to what these models are saying. Truthfully, some of the models are still in disagreement about certain things. These storms will likely begin to weaken and die out. This convection here could possibly inhibit some of the convection later on from gaining further strength across Ohio. So that's going to be something to watch out for as we get closer to the event. You begin to see a few cells begin to pop up across parts of Michigan as we get into Wednesday midday. You see quite a few clusters of storms begin to show up by the time we get to about noon. This is 12 o'clock noon. Sounding of those, you do get a fresh tornado sounding, relatively lower low-level shear than what I would be expecting, but aloft you do have stronger shear, very low. You have lower cloud bases, Cape values of 1500. Interesting thing is that the HRRR is now projecting that there's going to be a lot less convection over parts of Ohio upon the arrival of this event. That gives me cause for concern that the threat could be even more increased across parts of Ohio as well. Eastern Indiana, much of Indiana is probably going to be dealing with some of these cells in this region. Let's go a little bit forward. I think my thing froze. There we go. You do notice that convection begins to lift into Michigan as well. There's your tornado sounding. Not really showing that significant tornado sounding. PDS tornado soundings were being shown on the HRRR model in the previous run. This new model is starting to kind of downplay that event, which will happen at times, but it's still some good indicators of possible severe weather. All right, so this is at about 2 p.m. You do start to see that supercellular development across parts of Ohio and parts of Indiana. You notice Indiana here starting to fire those storms. Low cloud bases. You have significant tornado parameter of about 3, which is conducive to the possibility of a weaker tornado, not necessarily a more intense tornado. Like on rare occasions will you have an intense tornado with an STP of 3. You do have directional and speed shear in Indiana at this point. Cape values of 2300, decent enough to draw in that potential for storms. But the first wave in Ohio is likely going to be around 1 p.m. And then you do have these storm clusters that are kind of going across parts of Michigan. And there, right, you have your PDS tornado sounding as you get farther up into northern Michigan. So these storms are going to be producing tornadoes likely up there. And they are going to be moving very quickly, maybe at about 60 miles an hour. So they'll be difficult to they'll be fast moving. So if you get a tornado warning in your area, do not even worry about going outside seeing it, because it is moving fast. You're going to want to take cover right when your warning is issued. Find the interior room on the lowest floor of a building if you do have a tornado warning in your area. Remember that a tornado watch means that the conditions are favorable for tornado development, which that will be issued prior to these storms arriving. And then a tornado warning is when that tornado is either on the ground or is going to be on the ground soon, and it's imminent and you're going to want to take cover. All right, so keep that in mind as you are dealing with these storms. I'll take questions in just a second. I'm sure some people are chiming in, but I will take questions just a moment as I get through this presentation here. So these storms will move through at about 1 p.m. and then you have the second batch that could possibly develop on the backside in Michigan. Still getting that tornado sounding, so conditions could still be favorable for cells that pop up along the cold front to produce those storms. The first round in Ohio is likely going to reach Columbus by about 3 p.m. Going forward, you do have an additional setup of more supercell clusters as we get into the afternoon hours, 4 p.m. 5 p.m. you have those supercells beginning to form towards Cincinnati. showing more of a marginal severe setting with the initial first round that's already moved through, but these storms farther to the north do have that tornado potential still. So I'm seeing 2 rounds in Ohio, and I'm in fact now seeing PDS tornado soundings in Ohio as well. I think Ohio is going to be the play, that area that I'm targeting. Van Wert and Salina. I think there's going to be some good storms there firing across western Ohio. It's going to be something you're going to want to watch, but this entire region is going to be dealing with severe weather on Wednesday. You definitely want to have your severe weather plan reviewed and in place as we get into this upcoming severe weather event that will be occurring. So tornado soundings all across the area. Let's take a look at some of the more specific parameters. Let's go with the first round. First of all, hour 31. Let's check that out. That's where we're at. Let's take a look at the surface-based CAPE. First of all, let's look at the ground level CAPE, that low-level CAPE. Good low-level CAPE, especially across parts of Michigan. That low-level CAPE is really going to contribute to that instability at the surface that you need for those low-level weather events such as tornadoes to occur. So that's in a good place. Mixed layer CAPE. You got CAPE values all across parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. CAPE kind of more CAPE than originally shown across parts of Ohio. I do think I'm starting to see a little bit of an increase in the severe weather threat for that region. Surface-based CAPE values are around 2,000, enough to foster severe thunderstorm development. Cloud bases, again, going to be low across this region as these storms move through. Those lower cloud bases can make it easier for a tornado to spin up. Storm relative helicity at 0 to 3 kilometer level. Still, you have helicity in the atmosphere, a lot of spin in the atmosphere contributing to this event. At the lower bases, you still have that helicity that is needed for those types of events to occur. Here's your updraft helicity, the potential for where tornadoes could form. We're going to go to when these storms actually pass to see where those tornadoes could possibly occur. I'm really not seeing as much updraft helicity across Michigan with this, but that doesn't mean the tornado threat's not there. But the updraft helicity seems to focus itself again across Ohio and Indiana, and I do think the lake breeze that's going to be coming off is going to have a lot to do with how these storms initiate. Because remember, the lake is still very cold. Those low-level winds will definitely be impacted by that lake that's going to be keeping things cool. And wherever that breeze ends up when those storms roll in is going to cause some contribution to how those storms develop across Michigan. I do think Indiana and Ohio and Northwest Ohio might be the bigger play for these more significant storms. But I do think Michigan's going to be dealing with more prevalent tornado outbreak than they usually do. So it does definitely, everyone in the Great Lakes region should be watching the weather over the next several days. Okay, I'm going to take questions real quick. Let's see how we're doing with that. Hang out in the basement for much of tomorrow. You're going to want to be watching it. What on the map tells you that a tornado is developing? Okay, let me show that to you on an official radar, on a better radar app. What shows up in order for a tornado to be developing across the area? Okay, let's take a look at this cell out in Davenport. First of all, current radar, you do see some thunderstorms developing across Indiana, thunderstorms across Ohio. I do think there will be some pop-up showers and thunderstorms throughout the day across that region. And Michigan, you may not get as much in terms of those pop-up storms. It will be with these events. Now, here's a great storm to look at. This is Radar Scope, by the way. It's $10 in the App Store. It's a very useful tool in showing these particular cells and what's happening in them. Well, let me show you. It's right next to the radar station. This is a great example to use for this setup. So when you are looking at a normal radar app, I would advise you check out the velocity graphic. If you don't have a velocity graphic, I highly advise that you get one, especially with the tornado threat. Now, here is what I would look at in terms of a tornado developing. Okay, so all you see here on this velocity chart are greens and reds. Well, what do those greens and reds mean? All right, so what you have here is your red indicates winds that are going towards your radar station, which is right here. Okay, your radar station is focused on this particular area. All right, your green showing winds that are going away from the radar station. All right, so you have whenever you have green and red right next to each other, for example, right here. Hang on just 1 minute. Let me fix that real quick. I need to check on my greens and reds. I don't think I had that just right. but I'll check on that real quick. Anyways, when you're doing with velocity, when you have velocity where you have the reds and greens right next to each other, that indicates an area of rotation where a possible tornado could form. All right. So when you use the velocity charts, okay, you'll be able to see the winds in the storm, okay, and how they're interacting. And if you see green right next to red, I would be cause to concern that that is where the tornado is likely going to form. Anywhere in the tornado warning polygon box is in danger and should be taking cover, but the places that are in the path of this region, such as Davenport, Illinois, Hampton, Illinois, those regions, they should be keeping an eye on this. All right. I know there's only severe thunderstorm warning box. That's because the rotation's rather broad. When you see that rotation begin to tighten and start to become a bit stronger, that's when you need to watch for a possible tornado developing. Okay. So that is currently with a tornado outbreak that's going to be developing across the west. But I just wanted to show you that and answer to your question right there. You're in a camper, Berrien County, near Lake Michigan Beach. All right, that's a great question there. Let me go to that real quick. First of all, let me check and make sure that I don't have any comments on Facebook. We're good there. All right, so let's look at Berrien County real quick. I'm going to zoom in locally to Michigan here. And then we'll back it up to see exactly what you and Berrien County might expect. Again, keep in mind, this is the current HRRR model. The model will likely change in a little bit. Okay, these models have been kind of a little bit crazy in regarding how to forecast this event because, again, this is the RRFS will probably be a better one to check out as we get to it. This is 2 a.m. Again, Traverse City, Alpena, places in northern lower Michigan is going to be seeing a lot of rain and thunderstorms overnight tonight. By the time we get to 7 a.m., you do see these little cells that are beginning to form across parts of the Lake Michigan shoreline. These storms will a couple of these storms will probably be severe. Berrien County, you get a sounding out in Berrien County around this time, 8 a.m., showing that marginals tornado. I do think if any tornado does pop up, which likely won't happen in the morning, but if one does, it'll likely be relatively weak. So just keep that in mind. Then these cells begin to form also parts of Saginaw, Mount Pleasant. Those regions have a severe weather sounding. Again, your hodograph looking pretty good there. And then Allegan County on those storm formation across Indiana, marginal tornado threat. Lower cloud bases, you have high cloud tops right there. Cape Valley is about 145. So you can see those storms as they are moving through that region. And then as we get to 2 p.m., that's when you should be watching in Berrien County, okay? 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., you do have those storms that are initializing, moving off to the northeast, and kind of a cluster, multi-cell cluster of supercells likely embedded within that. There's your tornado sounding, looking good for tornadoes in that region. Significant hail sounding as well, kind of showing that potential for large hailstones. Again, there's significant hail threat with this event as well. Cape Valley is a 2200, low cloud bases, high cloud tops, no capping, inversion in the atmosphere. SRH values of about 300 could definitely contribute to tornado development. Along the lakeshore, you'd probably be better off than inland, okay, because again, you have that cool lake that's going to be influencing these storms upon their approach to the area. Again, northern Michigan, I think areas farther north of Kalamazoo are likely in the greater threat zone for tornadoes. It does appear that afternoon heating is going to really be influence these storms by the time we get to that afternoon. You get this sounding just north of Lansing. Tornado sounding, have a very, not a great hodograph for tornadoes, but still good hodograph for damaging winds in particular, I think, with this. Detroit, also included in this hazard zone. Tornado sounding, low cloud bases, high cloud tops, with that initial round of storms that begins to move through. And then we continue to move through about 4 p.m., finally move out, and maybe a few pop-up clusters on the backside as well. These may not be able to constitute strong tornadoes afterwards, though. But again, anything's possible. Those clusters could produce something. But this is an event that's likely going to begin as early as 8 a.m. Got those morning storms moving through, and then 2 p.m. is when you should be concerned about those really damaging storms moving through much of Michigan. Let's do a specific for Indiana as well. We'll take a look real quick. Just north of Lansing, that's right where you guys are. Yeah, it looks like there's going to be some damaging winds definitely across that region, maybe possibly some tornado development as well. We'll have to see how things form out. 7 p.m., I'm seeing another round of supercell thunderstorms moving into southeastern Michigan. Tornado sounding there, appearing across parts of the region there as well. I'm going to go live on Instagram because that is where most people from Cedarville are from. I'm just going to do that in front of this right here, just so that they can see, because Cedarville is going to be impacted by this event as well, and the majority of people on the Instagram are from Cedarville University. So we're going to go and do that real quick. So just stay tuned, and then I'm going to go do a specific Ohio forecast. Please put in your questions while I'm doing this so that I can provide the best updates that I can for you guys. So let's do that real quick. All right, Cedarville University and anyone following on Instagram, welcome to the live stream. Oops. Cedarville University and anyone else using the Instagram page, welcome to this emergency live stream for a tornado outbreak that is likely going to be occurring across Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Now, again, Cedarville is likely going to be in the threat zone. That's not as significant for tornadoes, but I think the damaging wind threat is going to be very elevated with this setup for Cedarville University. So you're going to want to be aware of this event ongoing across this region. So I'm going to put you guys on the screen here, and we are going to be heading to Ohio to do the latest update. We are also live on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So you can also stay tuned there to get the latest updates. So here we go. Don't want to be on Facebook at the moment. There we go. All right, so let's go to Ohio at this point. And then we'll go to Indiana in just a minute as well. Ohio, I think, has one of the greatest chances of seeing all forms of severe weather with this event. Why? Well, based on the latest models, I would say that it does. All right, so this is 9 a.m. As of right now. You have a couple thunderstorms moving through this region. This morning, you probably heard some rumbles of thunder, especially if you're in this region. Those will likely dissipate pretty quickly. And then I'm just going to fast forward all the way to Wednesday, because that's when those big events will begin across the Great Lakes region. Ohio, specifically, so you can see Dayton right there. I'm going to put you guys really close to right there, and then people on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch are also watching as well. Feel free to chime in with a comment. This is going to be a big event for severe weather across Ohio, so you're going to want to definitely keep an eye out on the latest updates for severe weather. Stay tuned to your local authorities. Stay tuned to campus security. They will likely be keeping track for you at Cedarville as well. But here we go. This is at 9 a.m. Again, storms could be initiating as early as 11 a.m. across this region. You get a sounding in Troy, Ohio. Marginal tornado sounding, so you will have some severe capabilities with this setup as early as 11 a.m. So those will move through, progress off to the east. I think 2 p.m. is really the time to start to get kind of concerned about these storms moving through Ohio. Okay, you have this initial supercell leading off the main edge. And there's your tornado sounding. You got a nice curved photograph, very low cloud base, directional and speed shear is very high. You have your high cloud tops with this. My chase plan is going to be right in this region right here, okay? And I'll tell you why that is in just a second. But you do have these storms that are going to be firing as early as 11 a.m. and then some storms at 2 p.m. These storms are going to move through this region and progress off to the east and northeast at about 55 to 60 miles an hour. So they're going to be very fast-moving storms. They're not going to be easy to keep up with. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. And then 3 p.m., you have the storms getting very strong over parts of just north of Dayton. Cedarville is kind of right here. Let's get a sounding of Cedarville as these storms moving in at this point. There's your tornado sounding. You got that curved photograph, not a very large curved photograph, but you have directional and speed shear. Cape values of about 1,200. Storm relativisticity, again, still pretty low, about 200. So those lower Cape values will likely contribute to a lower tornado threat, maybe more of a damaging wind threat. Get a sounding up in my chase location. Storm relativisticity values do go up and constituting a greater severe environment. So I think Ohio is going to be pretty bad because not just because this is not the only round they're going to be dealing with. Okay, the second round is going to come in on the backside. Columbus, you're going to probably get some hailers with this. Okay, very sharp storms, marginal severe threat with this. Storm moving into Columbus. Again, threat will begin to decrease as you head off to the east. and they'll begin to dissipate. Next round comes at 6 p.m. This is the second round of severe thunderstorms, all right? So Ohio is going to be dealing with 2 rounds of strong thunderstorms based on the latest HRRR model, all right? So Cincinnati, go just north of there, marginal severe potential in Cincinnati, but as you go farther north into parts of Dayton, that tornado sounding does come back, and the potential for significant hail returns, all right? So low cloud bases, high cloud tops, good speed shear, Cape values of about 2,000 right here in this, and also storm relativity values will still be close to 300. I do think a second tornado threat will emerge from these. So the first round comes about 1 p.m. Second round comes at about 6 p.m., all right? So that is kind of the time to be aware of when these storms begin to move through. Storms will continue to intensify and move off to the east connected with that cold front. Your marginal severe sounding. You back it up just a little bit. I want to get a look at these cells real quick, because there's a PDS tornado sounding across Lima. I do think there's going to be some very decent, particularly decent tornado threat with those initial cells moving through at about 5 p.m. in Lima, Ohio, just east of Van Wert. Van Wert is a very flat area, and it's very easy for tornadoes to spin up in that region. That's where I'll be when this event begins at about 5 p.m. All right, so these storms will be quite decent across this area. Let's freeze frame it on that first round of storms. I'm doing it state by state. We'll do Indiana in just a minute. Let me make sure there's no questions on the studio real quick. Nope, we're all good there. All right, so let's go to the first round of storms Wednesday at 2 p.m. All right, we're going to freeze frame it on hour 30. All right, get a look at some of those severe weather dynamics. Updraft helicity. Actually, updraft helicity shows where a tornado could possibly drop, because there will likely be an updraft forming in that region. As we get to the end of this event, you notice there is a lot of updraft helicity readings coming from Ohio. Okay, so there is the threat of tornadoes existing with this setup. All right, we need to zoom out into a regional graphic in order to get a view of all of the other severe weather dynamics. But this is Wednesday's severe weather event right here. It looks like Michigan again, though, despite showing a greater thermodynamic environment for tornadoes, again, that lake I think is going to cause some issues with that setup. So let's check out the bulk shear. Got good wind shear ahead of this event, okay? Lots of wind shear in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. So that wind shear is going to contribute to your intense tornado potential. Storm relative helicity, we need to back it up to when that initial line forms in. You have storm relative helicity, lots spinning in the atmosphere, especially in northern Ohio. That focus point of more intense thunderstorms, I believe, will occur there. Significant tornado parameters, again, they are increased across along the lakeshore, though I think the lake's probably going to inhibit that a bit more with the cooler temperatures that exist there. But your significant tornado parameters also elevated across parts of northwest Ohio. Your bulk shear, we already looked at bulk shear, and storm relative helicity, but your supercell composite values, the potential for supercells to form, again, still elevated across northern Ohio and central parts of Michigan, okay? So just be aware, if you live in Cedarville, you are going to be watching the weather, on Wednesday. I will be storm chasing from Salina up towards Van Wert, this region right here, but Cedarville, I may actually target your area for the first amount of storms in the morning, okay? This is going to be an all-day storm event, all right? You're going to want to be watching the weather. Stay tuned to your local authorities for the severe weather information. And just as a reminder, a tornado watch means that conditions are favorable for development of tornadoes, and a tornado warning means that a tornado is imminent or possibly going to occur. Okay, so if you see that there's a tornado watch, be watching the weather. If there's a tornado warning, take cover. All right, this is going to be a very dangerous weather day across the Great Lakes region. All right, so be aware that this event, I will be publishing this live stream for people that haven't had a chance to see it, but keep in mind, big tornado outbreak likely across Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio all day Wednesday. All right, all day Wednesday is going to be this hazard. All right, particularly 2 rounds in Ohio and Cedarville. Also, places farther north are likely going to be the greater threat zone. So I'll publish this live stream on Instagram. Make sure to stay updated there. It's not going to be a good event for Ohio on Wednesday. Okay, I'm using that strong wording because I want you to be aware of this event and keep in mind the danger that is associated with this. Okay, so I'm going to end this live stream on Instagram, and I'm going to continue to work with my other platforms here. If you want more further information, head right now to YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. I'm going to be providing updates for the next 15 minutes on that platform. So stay tuned there, and I will see you all in a little bit. All right, we will check out Indiana real quick. Live emergency update on tornado threat. There. Okay. Let me check the comments on Studio. We are all good for Studio. All right, check Facebook. We are clear on Facebook. All right, we are going to continue with this in Indiana now. Let's focus Indiana. Probably just heard the thunder outside. Got a thunderstorm moving through my area right now. How far are we on this? Wow, that was a pretty loud clap of thunder. Okay, 7 a.m. I'm not seeing those storms really initiating as much on the RRFS as it shows on the other models. It looks like we might have a clear slot based on what the RRFS is saying. So it might just be one round of significant storms in Ohio. But let's continue with the HRRR and see what the HRRR has to say about that. Let's go into Indiana. Local graphic. Indiana and Illinois. It also shows Illinois here. But we're going to back it up. We're going to do a forecast loop. $8 a.m. Here are your storms moving through southern Ohio, Bloomington, just south of Indianapolis, south of Muncie. Let's get a sounding at Bloomington. Marginal tornado threat. You have that hodograph, elevated cloud bases, high tops on clouds again. SRH value is close to 400. It's a good amount. Cape values are really low though, so it looks like those storms may not be able to contain the energy that they need. Storms will get to initiate across Indiana Wednesday at noon. Okay, more clusters. These storms could be supercellular, capable of producing a tornado. There's your tornado sounding, hodographs. You have your Cape values of 1800. Now they're elevated. Again, temperature's going to be up in the 80s during this time frame, so that's going to be allowing these storms to really initiate. At noon, 2 p.m., storms are in Ohio by now. This next round is starting to develop across Indiana. Eastern Indianapolis, still that tornado sounding existing for this next wave of storms. Southern tip on the Kentucky border, Louisville, not really showing as much severe threat. But that'll move throughout the day. And again, Indiana is also in that significant tornado threat, particularly I think the entire state of Indiana is actually in that significant tornado threat. So you're going to want to be aware of that as that event does occur. So overall, not going to be a good day tomorrow with these severe storms. I'm going to be chasing as many of these storms as I can throughout the day. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be signing off here because I do need to get out and chase these storms this morning. And I have some appointments to fulfill today. So just stay tuned to your local weather authorities. Once again, be safe, be aware, and I will continue to provide updates as newer models come out right before this event begins. I'll likely do a weather update early in the morning on Wednesday before going out and doing almost an all-day chase day across the region. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for later updates, and I will see you all a little bit later. Please be safe.